Alright guys, welcome back to 16 Tales. You saw the first two stories in the last video, so in this video you shall get the following two stories. Much like last time, there's not going to be any gameplay here, and there's not really going to be any commentary from me, so if you're not into that, might as well watch something else now. If you are, here is the tale of Urashima Taro and Liang and the Magic Brush.
In Liang and the Magic Brush, a wizard brings happiness to a small village boy named Liang.
And there you have it. Enjoy.
Nehoma. Hello. Come sit beside me, for I'm going to tell you a story from China. China is a very old country. In fact, it's the world's oldest living civilization. The Chinese people call their country Zhongguo, which means middle country. Today, most of the people live in small villages and work together in communes. But China also has several of the world's largest cities. The Chinese people are very proud of their nation, its long history, and its influence on other countries. The Chinese were the first to develop the compass, gunpowder, paper, porcelain, printing, and silk cloth. The Chinese language has many dialects. Written Chinese uses characters instead of an alphabet. Each character stands for a complete idea, thing, or sound. It's a very difficult language to learn because there are more than 40,000 characters. Our story today is an old favorite. Many Chinese stories are about gods, spirits, wizards, and even animals such as the dragon, who all have special powers. In today's story, a wizard brings happiness to a young village boy named Liang. So, come, sit beside me, and I'm going to tell you the story of Liang and the Magic Brush. A long time ago, in a small village in China, there lived a poor young peasant boy named Liang. Liang's parents died when he was a small child, so he could not go to school like the other children in the village. Instead, he worked all day, gathering firewood or pulling weeds for the people of the town. Every morning, Liang stopped to watch the children in the schoolyard make pictures with brushes and paint. The schoolmaster showed them how to draw green trees and bluebirds and red roosters. Liang was fascinated by the graceful strokes of their brushes and dreamed of all the beautiful pictures he would paint if he owned a brush. But his chores earned him only enough money for food and clothes, so of course he could not afford to buy brushes and paint. After the painting lesson was over, the children went back inside the schoolhouse, and Liang went slowly back to his chores with a frown on his face and a dream in his heart. One day, as Liang watched the children painting, he timidly approached the schoolmaster. "Excuse me, might I have an old brush so that I too can paint lovely pictures?" "So you think you would like to paint?" cried the schoolmaster. "You are just a poor peasant. Go back to your chores and do not come back into the schoolyard again." Liang was sad, but not discouraged. Why shouldn't I learn to paint even though I am poor? He said to himself. I will learn even if I do not have a brush. I will draw the things I see. At the end of the day, when he finished his chores, Ma Liang looked carefully at everything around him and drew pictures wherever he could. With a stick he drew trees and birds on the soft ground, and with his fingers he drew turtles on the sand. When he went back to his little hut, Ma Liang drew pictures on the walls with a piece of burnt firewood. Long into the night he drew picture after picture. By morning he had covered the walls with drawings of everything he could think of. Ma Liang practiced his drawing every day. Soon the birds he drew looked just like the birds in the trees. The fish he drew looked just like the fish in the river. He became so skillful that the people of his village marveled at his pictures. They would gather around him when he drew his pictures in the dirt. But Ma Liang was still sad that he did not have his own brush. Every night before he went to bed, he closed his eyes and wished for one. One night, in a cloud of smoke and a flash of light, an old wizard appeared. The old man had watched Ma Liang every day as he drew his pictures and made the village people happy. Ma Liang, he said in a creaky voice, you have worked very hard, and now you have earned a brush. But use it wisely, for it has great powers. And then, with another cloud of smoke and a flash of light, the old man vanished. The next morning, Ma Liang awoke and thought about his strange dream. He looked down, and in his hands was a golden brush. He blinked to see if he was still dreaming, but the brush was really there. He jumped out of bed and went to the wall of his hut. There he drew a beautiful bird with his new brush. Then, right before his eyes, the bird became real. Ma Liang watched with wonder as the bird flapped its wings and flew off the wall. It flew out of Ma Liang's window to a tree outside, where it sang sweetly for the village people. That's amazing, thought Ma Liang. Then Ma Liang took his brush and scurried outside to a nearby stream, and on a rock he painted a toad. And just as he finished, the toad jumped off the rock and into the stream with a splash. The young boy stopped and looked again at his wonderful brush. It was magic. Everything he painted became real. Now, instead of gathering firewood and pulling weeds, Ma Liang went from hut to hut to the poor people of his village and asked them, "What is it that you want most of all? I will paint it for you." Some said they needed clothing for their children, so Ma Liang painted clothing. A poor farmer asked for a buffalo to pull his plow. Ma Liang painted him a strong, healthy buffalo. And he painted food for the women to cook. All of the people in the village were very grateful and very happy. It was not long before the emperor heard about this young artist who was spreading good fortune throughout the village. But the emperor was a mean and greedy man. All he wanted was more and more gold for his kingdom. He wanted Ma Liang's brush for the wealth it could bring him. "Bring me the boy, Ma Liang," he commanded, "so that I might have the magic brush." So the emperor's soldiers marched to the small village to find Ma Liang. They told him of the emperor's wishes, but Ma Liang did not want to go. So the soldiers arrested Ma Liang and carried him back to the emperor's castle. Ma Liang was brought before the emperor. "So, you're the boy who paints pictures for the village people. If this is so, paint me a golden dragon," demanded the emperor. Ma Liang pretended he did not understand. He went to the wall, and instead of painting a golden dragon, he painted a green frog that leaped off the wall and landed right in the emperor's bowl of rice. Then the emperor ordered Ma Liang to paint him a bar of gold. Instead, Ma Liang drew a large yellow serpent. It attacked the emperor and had to be killed by the soldiers. The emperor was furious and grabbed the magic brush. He ordered Ma Liang thrown into the dungeon. Then the emperor called for the court painter. He handed him Ma Liang's brush and said, "Paint me a great tree with leaves of gold coins that will fall like rain when I shake the branches. Do it at once." The court painter did as he was told. When he finished, there was a beautiful picture of a tree on the wall with many gold coins on its branches. But when the emperor rushed to the tree to shake the branches, he ran right into the wall and bumped his head on it. The tree was not real. It was only a picture. Now the emperor realized that the brush had magical powers only when Ma Liang was the painter. He ordered his soldiers to bring the boy from the dungeon. When Ma Liang appeared, the greedy emperor tried to make friends with him and spoke to him kindly. "Here is your magic brush. I know I cannot use it to paint the things I want, but if you will stay in my palace and paint pictures for me, I will make you very rich." Ma Liang pretended to agree. So the emperor handed Ma Liang the brush. "Now, paint me a mountain of pure gold," he said. Ma Liang painted the mountain, but he painted it behind a great and beautiful blue sea. "Beautiful, beautiful," cried the emperor. "Now paint me a ship so that I can sail to my mountain and bring back the gold." In a twinkling, Ma Liang painted a fine ship worthy of an emperor. The emperor and his soldiers quickly climbed aboard and set sail for the mountain. But since there was no wind, the ship moved very slowly. So the emperor called out, "Too slow, too slow! Paint a wind to speed us along!" Again, Ma Liang did as he was told, and he painted a huge gust of wind to move the emperor's ship. The wind tore at the sails, and great waves pounded the ship. "Too much!" cried the emperor angrily. "You will sink us!" But Ma Liang could not hear the emperor's cries. The storm he had painted was too loud. The wind howled, and the waves crashed about the wooden ship. Then with a great crack, it split in two and sank into the stormy waters. Ma Liang walked slowly away from the palace. Never again was he forced to paint for evil purposes. Instead, he traveled across the lands of China, from one small village to another, and painted for the poor with his magic brush. China has more than 3,000 years of recorded history, and its myths, legends, folktales, and proverbs date from ancient times. China is a very large country. There are different stories told in different parts of China, and the stories tell of the way of life of the people from different areas. There are hundreds of stories from China. Stories like the King of the Monkeys and the story of the first kite. You can find them in your school or public libraries. Read and enjoy the tales of China and stories from all over the world. Share a story with a friend, so our tales will never end.
And there you have Ma Liang and the magic brush. Now what I was trying to do, let me try that again. Here we are. Anyway, I kinda wish that the video was better quality, but that's how it shows. What you're seeing is exactly what I'm seeing, so what are you gonna do? And now, the tale of Urashima Taro.
The tale of Urashima Taro is a Japanese story that tells about a poor, kind fisherman who befriends a magic turtle. and is given the chance to live like a prince.
So if you like turtles, this is the one for you. And that'll be it for me, so upon the conclusion of this, thanks for watching, see you next time.
The tale of Urashima Taro is one of Japan's oldest and most treasured folk tales. The story has been passed from one generation to another and is still an old favorite. Today, the Japanese people try to combine the best of Western and Japanese ways of life. They eat both Japanese and Western foods, read both Japanese and Western books, and wear both Japanese and Western clothes. The people love beauty, and many take vacation trips to admire the beautiful trees and flowers of their country. They often travel in large groups, and sometimes a whole school class takes an overnight trip. Japanese children go to school and study many of the same subjects as students in the United States, but more time is spent on reading and writing because the language is so difficult. The Japanese borrowed the Chinese system of writing as well as many Chinese words. The writing includes symbols, which were once picture words. Long ago, when Japanese children asked questions, many times the elders would tell a story to explain the answer. The children often asked about the life of a prince or a princess. When they asked why they too could not live like royalty, their parents answered by telling them the story of Urashima Taro. And they began by saying, "Mukashi, Mukashi." Long, long ago, there lived a young fisherman named Urashima Taro. He lived with his old parents in a small village on the coast of Japan. Taro's father had been a fisherman before him and had taught him the skill and knowledge of fishing. But now, since his father was too old and too tired, Taro became the fisherman of the family. Everyone in the village knew Taro was a great fisherman, but he was also known for his kind heart. He would chat with the young, the old, and the lonely, bringing a little joy into their lives. One cool evening, Taro came home after a long, discouraging day. He had only caught 3 small fish. The fishing has been poor, he thought. Taro pulled his small boat onto the beach and started home. On his way, he heard some children laughing excitedly. He saw them tormenting a small sea turtle. "If you keep poking at that sea turtle, it'll die," called Taro. The children paid no attention and continued teasing the creature. Then Taro thought of a better way to deal with the mischievous children. "What if I trade you my fish for the turtle?" asked Taro. The children looked at each other, then looked at the sea turtle, and they cheered. "It's a deal." So, Taro handed the children his day's catch in exchange for the turtle's safety. The children ran off into the distance, laughing and chattering about their great bargain. Taro knelt down and gently picked up the small, shivering turtle. "I will return you to your home in the sea," said Taro. "I am sure you will be much happier there." Taro walked to the edge of the water and carefully coaxed the turtle into the gentle waves. He waited until the turtle disappeared far in the distance. And then he headed home with an empty basket. The next morning, as always, Taro rowed out to the open ocean. As he sat and waited for a fish to come, the soft waves splashed against the sides of his boat. It was very quiet and peaceful. Suddenly, he heard his name ring out in the ocean breeze. He looked around, but there were no other boats in sight. "Hmm, I must have heard the cry of a seagull," thought Taro, and he went back to his fishing. Again he heard his name, this time clear as a bell. He looked around again. He saw a sea turtle swimming alongside his boat. "A sea turtle calling my name?" chuckled Taro. "Yes, Taro," answered the sea turtle, surprising the lad even more. "Thank you for saving my life yesterday." "Oh, it's you," said Taro. "You are very welcome." Then the turtle asked Taro if he had ever seen the Dragon Palace. Taro shook his head and said, "Oh, I have heard many enchanting stories of this magnificent palace at the bottom of the sea, but I, myself, have never had the pleasure of visiting this wonderful place." "Then I would like to take you there," said the turtle. Taro returned to his fishing and said, "I'd love to go, but I haven't finished my work. Besides, I don't have the strength to swim that distance." "Oh, you may ride upon my back," said the turtle. And at that moment, the turtle grew to more than twice its size. "Now won't you come with me?" asked the turtle. Taro could not resist the invitation, so he climbed onto the giant sea turtle's back, and he held onto the animal's shell. Then they dove into the deep blue sea. Strangely enough, Taro didn't grow tired as he traveled through the depths of the ocean. They swam through fields of golden seaweed until they reached a clearing. In the distance, a magnificent gate appeared. When the two travelers arrived, they could see a courtyard of colorful fish. The fish gave Taro a warm welcome and led them to a large hallway that was lined with golden columns so tall they seemed to touch the sky. The floors were tiled with rainbow shells, more brilliant than the scales of a fish, and the walls were covered with coral, pearls, and precious stones. Never before had this fisherman seen such beauty and elegance. A lovely princess appeared. "Welcome to my father's palace, Urashima Taro. The sea turtle has told me of your kindness, and I'm so glad you have decided to come." Her voice echoed through the chambers like a melody. She led him to a large table covered with elegant trays of delicious foods. Such a marvelous feast for a mere fisherman, thought Taro. Court musicians filled the room with beautiful music. Taro spent many enchanted hours at the Dragon Palace. Each day brought new pleasures to behold, and every wish Taro ever had came true. He was so happy there, he forgot everything. 3 days slipped by before he even gave a thought to the home he left behind, his parents, or his life as a fisherman. One day, the princess led Taro to a large viewing room. On each wall was a window, and each looked out on the beautiful garden that surrounded the palace. "This is a timeless garden where the 4 seasons can be seen at once," said the princess. Taro looked through the east window and saw spring. Cherry trees were in full bloom, and a fresh aroma filled the air. Through the south window, Taro saw the warmth of summer. A carpet of grass with lush green trees bearing fruit that was so ripe he could almost taste its sweetness. Looking through the west window, Taro could see the trees of autumn. The warm-colored leaves tossed and floated against the sunset sky. Then a cold wind blew into the room, and Taro turned toward the north window. His heart fell, for the cold winter scene reminded him of his own village. A chill ran down his back, for now he realized how much he missed his life as a fisherman. He slowly turned to the princess and explained that his parents must be worried, and it was time to go home. The princess began to weep and begged Taro to stay, but Taro shook his head in sorrow, for he knew he had already stayed much too long. The princess handed him a shiny black lacquered box tied with a red silk cord. "Taro, you must take this box as a token. But please never open it, for it contains something very precious. Taro promised never to open the box and waved farewell as he left the palace. The turtle carried Taro back through the sea to the shore of his village. Taro walked slowly along the same shore he had walked many times before, but something seemed different. The hills and shore were the same, but there were many new houses he had never seen before. He walked towards his home, but in its place he found a strange new house. He ran to an old man who was sitting nearby and asked him, "Oji-san, what happened to the house of Urashima?" "Ah, you must be a stranger," said the old man. "My grandfather told me the legend of the young Urashima boy who was swallowed by the sea. But that was hundreds of years ago." "That cannot be possible. I am Urashima Taro." The old man looked at Taro in bewilderment. He shook his head, for he was too old and too tired to argue about such nonsense. Confused and frightened, Taro ran to the shore, for that was the only thing that did not change. He was comforted by the lonesome pounding of the surf. Perhaps the sea turtle will return, Taro thought. He waited and waited, but the turtle did not appear. There's no hope. Then he remembered the black box. Perhaps this will take me back to the palace. Although he had promised not to open it, he slowly untied the red silk cord and carefully lifted the lid. A strange cloud of mist drifted out and brushed against Taro's face, then floated away into the sea breeze. Bewildered, Taro looked into the empty box. Suddenly his face grew wrinkled. His dark black hair turned snowy white. His youthful body grew old. Now Taro understood. The box had contained his youth. Moments ago, Taro was a strong young man, but now he sat alone on the beach, a very old, old man. The tale of Urashima Taro is a story with many different meanings. Some say the moral of the story is never break promises. Others say the moral is that fortune and money do not always bring happiness, and that true happiness comes from the family, the home, and the heart. Still other people say there is no moral at all to this story. It's just a story which will make you feel happy and make you feel sad. Urashima Taro is one of many folk tales from Japan. You can find others in your school and public libraries, like Momotaro, the Peach Boy, and Kaguya Hime, the Luminous Princess, and Shitakiri Suzume, the Tongue-Cut Sparrow. Read and enjoy the folk tales from Japan and from all over the world. Share a story with a friend so our tales will never end.